the Iraqi raid. Tensions have been high between the US and Iran since the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in Iraq at the beginning of the year. For more, I've been speaking to Trita Parsi. He's the Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, an expert on Iranian matters.
It seems like the new Iraqi Prime Minister, who is a compromise choice between the Iranians and the Americans, who are the two powers that have the greatest amount of influence in Iraq, has ordered a raid, arrested up to 13 members of this paramilitary group that is strongly supported by the Iranians, have had very close ties to the Iranians, but also has been integrated into the Iraqi national forces as well. It's not entirely clear what is behind it. It may be a movement by the Prime Minister to increase Iraq's own independence, not just from the American side, mindful of the fact that there's going to be a reduction of American troops there, but also increasingly from the Iranians and a reassertion of Iraqi independence. But it is unclear because we don't know if this is part of a bigger pattern or if this is rooted in something else than what I just mentioned.
And the Americans have been accusing Katai'b Hezbollah of firing rockets at its bases and also at the embassy and businesses in Iraq. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is a paramilitary group that has been very close to the Iranians, and during the American occupation of Iraq, there were numerous attacks by these groups against American forces. This was partly driven by the Iranian interest in seeing the United States bogged down in Iraq because of a very clear perception the Iranians had that if the United States was successful in Iraq, the next target would have been Iran, and the U.S. would have sought to either do regime change or an invasion of that country. So they saw themselves having an interest in undermining the U.S. in Iraq. But later on, it also became a very critical force in fighting ISIS. It was one of the more better equipped, better trained paramilitary groups that actually had quite a lot of success and did a lot of the ground fighting against ISIS. But in the last couple of years, as the United States has, under Donald Trump, pursued a much more aggressive posture towards Iran, breached the Iran deal, violated that agreement, and walked out of it, we've also seen the tensions between the United States and Iran play out in Iraq, in which this organization has been a leading actor, as you mentioned, being behind some of the attacks against U.S. embassy and other targets, although they have not been the only ones, and there's some question marks as to whether some of those attacks that prompted the U.S. to respond actually were conducted by ISIS and not by this organization.
And all this is happening at a time when the defense ministry in Iran is saying that a fire at a gas storage facility to the east of Tehran has been brought under control. Should we be reading into this blast at this station?
I don't think so, but again, we don't know much about it, and certainly the timing is curious, but we don't know if there is any link between these two things. There is a history, of course, in Iran in which when there actually has been attacks, there has been attacks by Israeli forces inside of Iran targeting IRGC. The Iranians have denied it, and they've denied it mainly because if they admitted that they were under attack, they would be under more pressure from their allies and partners to retaliate. And in order to avoid that, they actually denied it. But they also denied it because it was embarrassing towards their own domestic audience.
Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft.